In a world obsessed with identities, zodiac signs, personality tests, and social labels, what if one of the most revealing clues about who you are was hiding in the last digit of your birth year? According to Carl Jung, symbols hold power, and numbers speak the hidden language of the unconscious. Each digit 0 through 9 carries a unique psychological vibration, shaping how you think, feel, connect, and grow. This isn't about fortune telling. It's about uncovering deep patterns within yourself that you may have always sensed, but never had words for. In this video, we'll decode what your final birth year digit may reveal about your inner archetype, from the silent observer to the achiever, the seeker to the sage. By the end, you might just see yourself with clearer eyes than ever before. Carl Jung believed that the human mind is not a purely rational machine, but a deeply symbolic system shaped by unconscious forces. He proposed that beneath our waking thoughts lies a vast reservoir known as the collective unconscious, layer of the mind that holds the shared symbols, myths, and patterns of all humanity. In this realm, symbols are not just artistic or cultural artifacts. They are powerful messengers that express truths our conscious minds may not yet understand. Jung argued that these symbols appearing in dreams, myths, religions, and even numbers help us uncover what he called archetypes, the universal patterns of human experience, such as the hero, the mother, the shadow, and the self. For Jung, numbers were far more than mathematical tools. He saw them as primordial symbols, crediting language and representing archetypal meanings in the psyche. Numbers, he believed, appear in dreams and synchronistic experiences because they carry psychological weight. A recurring number might signify a theme or lesson emerging in one's life, urging the individual toward greater awareness. Jung was particularly fascinated by how certain numbers like 3, 4, and 7 consistently appeared across cultures and religious traditions, suggesting they held a deep symbolic resonance rooted in the human psyche. In this framework, the last digit of your birth year is not just a date marker. It can be interpreted as a symbolic imprint, reflecting a psychological tone or archetypal energy you may carry through life. When we analyze that digit through Jung's lens, we're not engaging in superstition, we're honoring the language of the unconscious. Each number becomes a gateway to self-understanding, revealing a hidden dimension of your personality, motivations, and potential. This symbolic view invites us to look inward and see not just who we are, but what we are becoming. In Jung's eyes, exploring the meaning behind a simple digit is a step toward individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. To Carl Jung, nothing in the psyche is random. Everything from recurring dreams to the numbers that seem to follow us holds potential meaning. He introduced the concept of synchronicity, the idea that events can be meaningfully connected even if they aren't causally related. For example, if you keep encountering the same number, or feel inexplicably drawn to the year you were born, Jung wouldn't dismiss it as coincidence. Instead, he'd encourage you to explore what your unconscious might be trying to tell you. The last digit of your birth year is not a cosmic accident. It belongs to a cycle of symbols that, when seen through the Jungian lens, reflects psychological forces working within you. The last digit acts like a signature, symbolic imprint that closes one decade and opens another. It represents the ending energy of a cycle, and at the same time, the foundational vibration that quietly shapes your identity. Each number from 0 to 9 carries its own archetypal resonance, and while numerologists may see these as spiritual codes, Jungianists see them as psychological indicators, expressions of the inner architecture of the human mind. This isn't about predicting your future. It's about understanding your internal blueprint. When you understand the symbolic meaning behind your last digit, you begin to recognize patterns in your behavior, your values, your fears, and even your generational mindset. You might see why you are drawn to certain relationships, careers, or struggles. You may understand what lesson you are here to learn. And beyond your personal story, the last digit also aligns you with a collective generation, who shares that same closing number. If your birth year ends in the digit 0, Carl Jung might say you embody the energy of the void, the zero that contains everything and nothing at once. 0 is the circle, the great container, the origin before form. It represents both infinite potential and silent absence. Psychologically, those born under this number often feel like quiet observers of life, not out of fear, but out of a profound inner depth. They tend to be reflective, introspective, and slow to speak, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are deeply processing everything they experience. These individuals often feel as though they are standing slightly outside of the world, watching others with curiosity, while carrying a sense of old wisdom or timeless perspective. This observer energy can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it grants profound clarity and intuition. People with this archetype can see connections others miss. They're sensitive to atmosphere, to truth behind words, to unspoken emotions. But on the other hand, this detachment can sometimes lead to isolation or a sense of invisibility. Others may overlook them, not realizing the depth they hold. Jung would say this is the burden of the self-archetype, the symbolic center of the psyche. Those connected to the self are on a journey of wholeness. But that path can be lonely. It requires patience, solitude, and the courage to sit in the unknown. Yet, the greatest power of the 0 archetype lies in transformation. Just as 0 can become any number in mathematics, the observer has the capacity to evolve into anything. They're sharpshooters of the psyche, able to enter many roles without being consumed by anyone. If your birth year ends in the digit 1, you are symbolically aligned with the energy of beginnings. Carl Jung would associate this with the archetype of the hero or the warrior, those who initiate movement, challenge the status quo, and step into the unknown. The number 1 carries a singular energy. It leads. It starts, it asserts itself in the world. People influenced by this digit often feel an inner push to act, to pioneer, to do something meaningful. There is a deep internal restlessness that drives them, not out of dissatisfaction, but because something inside tells them they are meant for more. They are the type to stand at the edge of comfort zones and ask, what's next? This initiating force comes with both strength and shadow. The strength is obvious ambition, drive, courage. These are individuals who often blaze new paths, whether in careers, ideas, or personal growth. They aren't content to follow blindly, they want to lead, even if that leadership is quiet and personal rather than public. Jung would interpret this energy as a manifestation of the animist, the assertive, goal-oriented spirit within all of us that moves toward fulfillment. However, when this energy becomes too dominant, it can lead to impatience, ego inflation, or a fear of stillness. Those influenced by the number 1 often struggle with stopping. Pausing can feel like failing. And yet, without reflection, even the most heroic journey can become a lonely sprint. What these individuals are truly seeking is not just success, but impact. They want their lives to count for something, to initiate change, whether in a relationship, a family, a business, or an idea. Jung would advise such a soul to balance their outer mission with inner alignment. The true hero isn't the one who wins the war outside, but the one who integrates the war within. When those born under the influence of 1 combine their boldness with introspection, their power becomes unstoppable. They don't just start things, they transform lives by setting things into motion that others are too afraid to attempt. Their journey is one of courage, but also of learning when to push and when to surrender. If your birth year ends in the digit 2, you are likely someone who seeks peace not just around you, but within you. Carl Jung might say you resonate with the anima of inward, feeling-centered part of the psyche that prioritizes connection, intuition, and emotional resonance. The number 2 carries a symbolic vibration of duality, self and other, light and shadow, strength and softness. People influenced by this digit are often highly sensitive to the needs of others. They intuit emotional shifts in a room. They anticipate conflict before it arises. and they often carry the unspoken role of mediator. There is an instinctual desire to bridge gaps, to bring opposing forces into dialogue, to heal what feels fragmented. This harmonizing energy is beautiful, but it is not easy. Jung would caution that the individual with this orientation must be wary of over-identifying with the needs of others. The desire to please, to be accepted, to avoid conflict can slowly morph into self-abandonment. People with the two archetype may struggle with saying no, expressing anger, or setting firm boundaries. They feel safest when harmony is maintained, but true growth often requires confronting disharmony. And so their journey becomes not about avoiding tension, but learning to move through it with integrity and care. The deeper gift of those born under the influence of two is empathy. They are often the listeners, the caregivers, the friends who hold space without judgment. They tend to attract people who need healing, because their presence itself is soothing. But to fulfill their own potential, they must learn the difficult art of assertive compassion, loving without losing themselves, connecting without clinging, supporting without rescuing. Jung would say they are called to become not just peacekeepers, but peacemakers, those who create balance from within, so they can bring it into the world. If your birth year ends in the digit 3, you are likely someone who lives through expression. Carl Jung would associate this archetypal energy with the messenger, the one who bridges inner experience and outer reality through words, art, and creative insight. The number 3 has long been a symbol of synthesis, where one idea meets another and a third thing is born. In myth, it represents the birth of expression, body, mind, and spirit working in unison. For those influenced by this number, the urge to communicate is not simply social, it's essential to their psychological well-being. Talking, writing, sharing ideas, these are not hobbies. They are a means of understanding the self and making sense of a chaotic world. People influenced by the energy of 3 are often curious, articulate, and full of ideas. They feel alive when they're engaged in meaningful conversation or immersed in something that sparks their imagination. Jung would likely see this as the ego's natural drive to individuate through exploration and creativity. But this strength comes with a challenge: energy dispersion. Those connected to this archetype often struggle with staying grounded. Their minds move fast, jumping from thought to thought, project to project, idea to idea. They might speak beautifully about change, but resist slowing down enough to embody it. It's easy for them to live in the realm of possibility while avoiding the discomfort of silence and stillness. At their best, the communicator is not just clever, but wise. They can translate deep emotional truth into language others can understand. They often have a gift for storytelling, teaching, or artistic expression, but Jung would advise this type to seek depth over performance. In a culture obsessed with appearances, the shadow of the 3 archetype is becoming trapped in the persona, the mask we wear for the world. True fulfillment comes when the communicator speaks not to impress, but to connect, when their voice becomes an instrument of authenticity rather than validation. They become a force for healing and inspiration. If your birth year ends in the digit 4, you carry the quiet strength of the builder, someone deeply grounded, reliable, and focused on creating lasting structures in both life and character. In Jungian thought, this energy might align with the guardian archetype or even aspects of the self, which seeks wholeness and balance through order. The number 4 symbolizes stability, the 4 corners of a foundation, the seasons, the elements. It is a number of rhythm, repetition, and responsibility. Those with this archetype often feel a deep inner calling to construct, not just in the physical sense, but in relationships and values and principles. Their work is not flashy or loud. It is consistent, enduring, and profoundly meaningful over time. People influenced by this digit often exhibit a sense of maturity even at a young age. They are drawn to routine, to clarity, to systems that make life functional and fair. Jung would say this stems from an unconscious desire to bring order to the chaos of life. But the builder archetype carries a paradox. The very strengths of structure and dependability can become a prison if taken too far. Individuals influenced by the number 4 might resist change, fear uncertainty, or feel anxious when things don't go according to plan. They may over-identify with duty and suppress their need for freedom, creativity, or spontaneity. Their challenge, then, is to embrace flexibility without losing integrity. Life will inevitably disrupt plans, challenge beliefs, and shift the very foundations they've worked so hard to build. Jung would encourage the builder to explore the shadow side of order, to ask where control becomes fear, where routine becomes avoidance. By facing this tension, they don't lose their grounding, they strengthen it. If your birth year ends in the digit 5, you are likely infused with the restless energy of the seeker, the one who cannot sit still in one truth, one place, or one version of life for too long. Carl Jung would view this archetype as deeply connected to the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of discovering who you really are beneath social conditioning and inherited beliefs. The number 5 represents movement, curiosity, change, and above all, freedom. Those influenced by this number are often natural explorers, not just of the world, but of the self. They ask the questions most avoid. They challenge assumptions, and they feel suffocated by routine or environments that limit their growth. To Jung, this energy would echo the archetype of the wanderer or the trickster, those figures who disrupt the status quo in order to reveal deeper truths. For the seeker, life is not a straight line. It is a winding road full of detours, awakenings, and reinventions. These individuals often experience multiple careers, relationships, or belief systems in one lifetime. But beneath the external change lies a deeper drive, the need to understand what it means to be truly alive. They are drawn to philosophy, spirituality, travel, and transformation, not out of novelty, but necessity. To stay still for them is to go numb. But this endless search can also become a trap. The seeker's shadow is escapism, the urge to keep moving so they don't have to feel, to jump into the next idea, person, or experience without digesting the last. Jung would caution that the journey must eventually turn inward. The outer world may offer clues, but the true treasure lies within. Until the seeker accepts solitude, they may never find the clarity they chase. Yet when they do turn inward, when they pause long enough to reflect, to process, to listen, their wisdom becomes rare and radiant. They become the visionaries, the storytellers, the ones who teach not from books, but from lived experience. Their perspective stretches beyond borders and binaries. They understand that truth is complex, evolving, and deeply personal. If your birth year ends in the digit 6, you embody the archetype of the nurturer, the one who is drawn instinctively to care, protect, and bring emotional harmony to others. In Carl Jung's framework, this energy aligns with the mother archetype, not just in a literal sense, but symbolically as the principle of compassion, creation, and inner wholeness. The number 6 resonates with the energy of responsibility, service, and beauty. People influenced by this digit are often deeply intuitive and emotionally intelligent, with a natural ability to read the needs of others before those needs are even spoken. They are the caretakers of families, communities, and ideas that require patience, warmth, and devotion to grow. But this nurturing force is not without its challenges. The nurturer's deep empathy often makes them vulnerable to emotional exhaustion and self-neglect. Jung would see this as the danger of projecting the anima or animus, the unconscious inner feminine or masculine, onto others. In other words, those with a 6 energy may give too much, hoping to fix or heal someone else, without realizing they are seeking completion outside themselves. They often find it easier to care for others than to care for themselves. Their shadow is over-responsibility, taking on burdens that don't belong to them, staying in relationships out of duty rather than joy, or losing their identity in the name of peace. Yet at their core, nurturers are incredibly powerful. Their love is not weak, it is healing. Their presence can transform a space, make someone feel seen, safe, and understood. Jung would encourage those influenced by this number to redirect some of that compassion inward. Only by mothering themselves, honoring their own limits, desires, and boundaries can they offer care that is truly whole. When they stop rescuing and start empowering, their nurturing becomes generative rather than training. At their highest expression, these individuals become the emotional anchors in a chaotic world. They lead not with dominance, but with presence. They don't demand loyalty, they earn it through quiet, consistent love. Their strength is subtle but unshakable. In a world starving for connection, the nurturer reminds us that real power is not control, it's care. And that the most transformative gift we can offer is not fixing someone's pain, but being willing to sit with them in it, without judgment, until they remember they're not alone. If your birth year ends in the digit 9, you carry the energy of the sage, the final archetype in the numerical cycle, and perhaps the most spiritually evolved. In Carl Jung's view, this aligns with the archetype of the wise old woman or wise old man, the inner figure who has walked through suffering, learned from it, and returned with insight to share. The number 9 symbolizes completion. It's not just the end of a cycle, it's the moment before rebirth. People who resonate with this energy often feel older than their years. There's a depth in their gaze, a softness in their voice, a quiet awareness that speaks not of information, but of lived truth. Those influenced by 9 often carry the emotional weight of the world. Empathy runs through them like a current. They are drawn to causes, to compassion, to helping others rise out of pain, not because it's trendy, but because they have known pain intimately themselves. Jung would say these individuals have a natural relationship with the collective unconscious. They feel the pulse of humanity, and it often shows in their dreams, their moods, their sensitivity to world events. They are the natural therapists, teachers, humanitarians, or spiritual guides, even if they never use those titles. Their very being often heals, but their great strength comes with a shadow. The sage, when wounded, can fall into martyrdom or isolation. They may take on too much responsibility for others' healing. Or worse, they may feel they must carry burdens alone, believing no one can truly understand them. They might withdraw into quiet sorrow, appearing calm while silently aching for connection. Jung would encourage the sage to remember wisdom does not mean silence. Service does not mean self-neglect. True compassion must include the self. When those under the 9 archetype begin to live their wisdom outwardly, not just by knowing, but by acting, they become radiant. Their words carry authority, not from ego, but from experience. Their love is not transactional, but unconditional. Their presence becomes a safe place for others to be real. In a world of noise and performance, they offer truth. They remind us that every ending holds a seed for something new. Their journey is not about reaching the top, but about coming full circle, understanding that what matters most is not status, but connection, not answers but meaning, not having more but being more. And now we arrive at the end not just of this video, but of a symbolic journey through numbers, archetypes, and the self. Whether your digit is 0 or 9, what you carry is not a label, it's a map. Carl Jung believed that we each have a unique psychological blueprint, shaped by both personal experiences and deeper collective forces. The digit at the end of your birth year may seem small, but when viewed through the lens of symbolism and the unconscious, it reveals clues about your deeper patterns, gifts, and inner work. The real question is, what will you do with that insight? Will you ignore it, or will you begin the quiet, courageous work of becoming more fully yourself? Because no matter what digit you bear, the path ahead is yours to walk. And perhaps, as you might say, your task is not to become someone new, but to remember who you were before the world told you to be someone else.